Avengers Doomsday has me cautiously optimistic, because I really do think the Russo Brothers will do their best job with this film. It seems like it'll have plenty of time in post-production so that the VFX will look good. If they have to do any small reshoots or rewrites, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. But there is one thing that does really concern me about this film, and it's not what you think. So the big concern really going around for Avengers Doomsday is that the cast is too big, and I don't think that's actually a problem. The cast was huge in Infinity War, as well as like with the final battle of Endgame, but that didn't seem to be a problem because you have these different groups of people together, with certain characters kind of in the lead having the main character arcs, and then a lot of the other characters are just kind of there. They're like background characters. They do serve a purpose helping out in the fight. They get little moments to shine, but they're just not put front and center, and that's going to be the case with a lot of the cast here in Avengers Doomsday. My main concern here is really just that this might not hit as hard as it could have, because a lot of the new characters from the Multiverse Saga, they haven't appeared in enough projects for us to become super invested into them, and so now we're in a scenario where they probably just have to be the background characters, and the ones with the main character arcs that are put front and center are the ones we've actually been invested into for many years, over many projects. Like Thor, it's probably no coincidence that they announced Chris Hemsworth in the first chair. And I'm going to give you a visual here with this pyramid of the characters that were announced and how invested we are into them as fans. At the bottom of the pyramid, we have Shang-Chi and Namor, who we know will be in this movie. Now don't get me wrong, I have no problem with these characters, they're great characters. But the fact of the matter is, we got one movie with Shang-Chi in 2021, and he did not appear again. And the fact of the matter is, his movie didn't connect to any of like the multiversal elements of the main Multiverse Saga story. It was more of a side quest, so it would very easily lend itself to a sequel that's also a side quest. And so you have a 5-year gap with no Shang-Chi where you could have easily had one more movie with him. And maybe he could have appeared in other projects. Maybe they could have done the Midnight Suns movie or something like that. And then on the same note, Namor was only in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, a very cool character, but again, he only appeared in that one movie, and there's a 4-year gap between Wakanda Forever and Doomsday, which is honestly enough time to probably do another Black Panther movie or some type of movie where you have Namor in it. Next up on the pyramid, we have Black Panther, the Shuri version, as well as the new Falcon. Now when it comes to the Shuri version of Black Panther, she just became Black Panther in Wakanda Forever, and that's like her only appearance in the Multiverse Saga. So what I said about Shang-Chi and Namor, there's kind of the same reasoning for her, but we are a little bit more invested into her because she appeared as a side character in the Infinity Saga, and so we definitely had a little bit more time with her. And then of course I have the new Falcon. He was in one movie and one TV show, and we did see him quite a bit, especially in the movie. So while we're not super invested in him, we're kind of invested in him, if you know what I mean. Next up, I have the Fantastic Four from the new Fantastic Four movie. Obviously, they've only had one movie, but the reason I put them higher than the other two rankings is because there's just something about the movie that makes it feel like we've spent more time with them. Maybe it's the fact that it montages through their earlier days and their origin. Or maybe it was just the fact that there was a huge threat and there were some jumps in time in the movie. And they also go through a lot as they have baby Franklin and they're in a newer phase of life. And so there's just a lot of stuff that goes on with them in the one movie we have. But obviously that's not as good as having like 2 or 3 movies. And I do feel like if they made the first Fantastic Four movie a few years back, like at the beginning of the Multiverse Saga, they would have had time for 2 movies. Then next up on the ranking is the Thunderbolts, aside from Bucky because he's higher up. Each of these characters, except for Bob, appeared in like one project before they were in this movie, except for Yelena appeared in 2 because she was in Black Widow and Hawkeye. And so I would say we are pretty invested in them, although obviously they only had like one team-up movie where we saw their group dynamic. And it's one of those things where I feel like Thunderbolts should have ended Phase 4 instead of Phase 5. And then in Phase 5 we could have got like a Thunderbolts versus Sam Wilson's Avengers movie. Speaking of which, next up on the ranking, I have Sam Wilson and Ant-Man. And in the Multiverse Saga, Sam Wilson only appeared in Falcon and Winter Soldier and the new Captain America movie. Which, I mean, that's the thing. If you compare him to the old Captain America, Steve Rogers, he had his own trilogy, and he was in a couple Avengers movies before the big Infinity War and Endgame, like, wrap-up of the Infinity Saga. But hey, at least 2 projects is better than one, and he's put front and center in both of them. And similar to Shuri, he was a side character in the Infinity Saga before he was like a main character in the Multiverse Saga, so that adds some extra layers. We were already invested in him a little bit, even though he wasn't quite front and center. And of course with Ant-Man, he has his own trilogy, which each movie is actually in a different MCU phase, so that's nice. And he did appear in Avengers Endgame, although he was definitely sidelined in that. while still also playing a huge role in the plot with the time travel. And then in the next rank of the pyramid, we have Bucky Barnes, and I separated him from the rest of the Thunderbolts because he's been in every phase of the MCU. He and Loki are like the only characters who've been in every phase. And obviously he wasn't quite put front and center in the Infinity Saga, but he's still like the second most important character in each of the Captain America movies. And then obviously we get to see him join the battle in Infinity War and Endgame. And then in the Multiverse Saga, they don't sideline him that much. Obviously he's in Falcon and Winter Soldier. He makes a cameo in the new Captain America movie. And he also plays a big role in Thunderbolts. And so just at the end of the day, for a character who's usually not put front and center, we're pretty invested in him. We've seen him quite a bit. Then in the next ranking, we have the Fox X-Men. I mean, this is their third decade being on the big screen. And in this scenario, we have Cyclops, Professor X, Magneto, Mystique, and Nightcrawler confirmed, as well as Beast, who we got a peek of in the Marvels. And Deadpool is also confirmed, so we're probably also getting Wolverine, which I wonder if it's going to be multiple variants. And I wonder if we're actually going to see the Earth 10005 variant, because when we see these X-Men, it would take place before Wolverine's death. The only reason, though, these aren't on the top of the food chain here is because it's not technically confirmed this is the Earth 10005 variants. It could just be a new universe played by the same actors, and that would make me very mad. But it's not just that. Even if it is the Earth 10005 variants, this would pick up in the revised timeline, which the last we saw of these characters and that was at the end of X-Men Days of Future Past, and then we didn't see anything in between that and Logan on the timeline. Although on the revised timeline we had prequel films with a younger cast because it was before the new timeline. The timeline is confusing. Still, nonetheless, this better be the Earth 10005 variants, and I'll be happy with that. We're definitely invested in them. But at the top, I have Thor and Loki. Obviously, as I mentioned, Loki is in every phase of the MCU. We are without a doubt invested in him. And then Thor, he's in each Avengers movie. He has 4 movies of his own. And this is the Russo Brothers handling him. I think they'll take him seriously. So as you can see with the confirmed cast we have so far, that is my pyramid of how invested we are into them. So the ones towards the top, those are the ones we need to have more focus on in Doomsday. And the ones towards the bottom have to just be more side characters that are just there to join in the fight. And then maybe in the next saga, they'll actually be done justice and have more screen time. Because overall, at the end of the day, as I said, I'm not worried about there being too many characters in here. It'll probably be a 2.5, 3 hour movie, and it'll just be certain ones that are put front and center, leading these different groups. So just the fact that we're not invested into a lot of these characters is the only thing I'm concerned about. But as I said, you just have to sideline those ones. It also concerns me that we've barely seen any of Doctor Doom, whereas in the Infinity Saga we knew Thanos' intentions and seen him a few times before Infinity War. So I hope they don't rush anything with Doctor Doom. Do you agree with me though? Let me know in the comments section down below. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next one.